Good morning, guys. Hope all of you are safe and fine. Today we will start solve exercises about perpendicular bisector of a segment. But before we start, what do we know about perpendicular bisector? It's the line that passes through the midpoint of a segment and is perpendicular to it. For example, this segment is AB, and segment means it has a definite measure. If I locate point I, the midpoint of AB, here for an example, what do you mean by I midpoint of AB? It means that AI equals to IB. Then any line drawn perpendicular to AB passing through its midpoint I is called the perpendicular bisector of AB. That means here D is the perpendicular bisector of AB. It's perpendicular to the segment passing through its midpoint. And as we said before, any point on the perpendicular bisector, here point M for example, it could be any point on line D. It's equidistant from both extremities of the segment. What do you mean by that? It means that if I join AM and MB, they should have equal length. I can clearly say that AM equals to MB since M belongs to the perpendicular bisector of AB. Now let's solve exercise 2, page 21. Here is the figure, and the question is circle the correct answer. BF is the perpendicular bisector of what? AC, AD, or AD? Let's look at the figure. Here, BF. Is it perpendicular bisector of AC? I said before that a perpendicular bisector should pass through the midpoint of the segment. Here you have AB equal 3 cm, BC equal to 2 cm. AB is not equal to BC, so B is not the midpoint of AC, and FB is not the perpendicular bisector of AC. This answer is not correct here. Let's try to find AD. AB equal 3 cm. BD equal to 2 plus 1, which is 3 cm. So B is the midpoint of segment AD, and since BF is perpendicular to AD, then yes, I can say that AD is the perpendicular bisector of AD. Now, CG is the perpendicular bisector of what? CG. Let's find here. Is it a perpendicular bisector of EG? No. This is EG. CG is not its perpendicular bisector since it's not a perpendicular drawn to the segment EG passing through its midpoint. This answer is not correct. So, is it a perpendicular bisector of BD? Let's check. This is CG, the line here. CB equals to 2 cm, while CD is 1 cm. They are not equal, so C is not the midpoint of BD, so CG is not the perpendicular bisector of BD. Now let's check BE. BE, I have to find a line perpendicular at its midpoint. BC equals to 2 cm. CE equals 1 plus 1, which is 2 cm. Since BC equal to CE equal to, that means C is the midpoint of BE, and I can clearly say since it's perpendicular, CG is perpendicular to BE at its midpoint C, so CG is the perpendicular bisector of BE. Now, QA minus QD. How to find that? Q, where's Q? It's here. QA minus QD. We said before that FB is perpendicular bisector of AD. Okay, here FB is its perpendicular bisector since it's perpendicular to AD through its midpoint B, and any point on the perpendicular bisector is equidistant from both extremities, so QA here it's equal to QD. Then QA minus QD should be equal to 0 since they have the same value. Now the perpendicular bisector of CE passes through which point? Here CE equals to 2 cm. What's the midpoint of CE? It's point D here. Why? Since CD equals to 1 cm and DE equal to 1 cm. So D is the midpoint of CE and the perpendicular bisector of CE should pass through its midpoint, which is D. Now FA equals to how much? FA. Let's mark it here. I know that FB is the perpendicular bisector of AD. We proved it before. BF is the perpendicular bisector since it's perpendicular to AD passing through its midpoint B. As I told you, any point on the perpendicular bisector is equidistant from both extremities of the segment. So the point F here is equidistant from A, and what's the other extremity? Here it's point D. Then FA equals to FD. Why? Because it's a point on the perpendicular bisector. I can put the same sign on both sides since they are equal. I can say that FA equals to DF or FD the same. Now, exercise 3, page 22. Match the following. The perpendicular bisector of AE passes through what? This is AE. They put the same sign on AL and LE. That means AL equal to LE means that L is the midpoint of AE, and we know that the perpendicular bisector should pass through the midpoint. Now, L is not mentioned in the options here, but if I joined it here together, if I draw the perpendicular bisector, I found that it passes through which point here? Point C. Now the circle of center O and radius 4 cm. This is our center of the circle, O. The radius is 4 cm. So the circle should pass through point C definitely since OC equals to 4 cm. But as we see, OH is the perpendicular bisector of AC since these are equal to each other, AH equal to HC. AO equals to OC here. Why? Because any point on the perpendicular bisector is equidistant from both extremities of the segment. So this circle of center O and radius 4 cm should pass through points A and C. Again, here I have OF is perpendicular to segment AB at its midpoint F. Then I can say that OB equals to OA equal to 4 cm. Okay, it's a property that I can always use. So the circle should pass up till now in 3 points, A, C, and B. Now OH passes through what? OH, let's try to extend it. Here it doesn't reach point B. I know that a line can be extended from both sides, but here, when I extend the line OH, it passes through point E. Okay? Now, the perpendicular bisector of BC pass through. This is BC. The line BC. If I want to draw the perpendicular bisector of BC, I have to locate its midpoint by using a ruler. I have to divide BC by 2. Okay, it means that this part here is equal to the other part. And then if I draw the perpendicular bisector, it should pass through which point? Point O. I have to draw it to get sure. Keep in your mind the perpendicular bisector is perpendicular to the segment passing through midpoint. Now the perpendicular bisector of BE passes through what? This is BE. This perpendicular bisector, I have to locate first the midpoint of BE, and then I can say it passes through point H if H is the midpoint. But here H is not the midpoint of BE. So the perpendicular bisector of BE doesn't pass through any of these points. Thank you for your attention.